Welcome back to the Silver Linings Transitions podcast and Zoom webinar. I am Jami Shapiro, the host and owner of Silver Linings Transitions, and I am excited to be sharing the fourth part of a fourth-part series on Do You Own Your Stuff? Or does your stuff own you? In the first part of the episode, first part of the four-part episode, I talked about who I am, who Silver Linings Transitions is, and how we as a society have too much stuff. In the second part, I talked about the mindset that we have and what we have to have in order to live a less cluttered life and why clutter is not good for us. The third episode was how we begin the process or not actually how we begin, but like some good tips for organizing and downsizing. And in this last episode, you have, in theory, gone through and organized and downsized, and now you have to figure out what to do with all of the things that you don't want to keep. So we are going to talk about that, and hopefully you get some good information, and thanks for tuning in for the fourth part. So we talked about, the giving your belongings away and why just because your loved ones don't want your things doesn't mean you're not loved, and that it may or may not be the best way to downsize or get rid of your things. Now we're going to talk a little bit about donations, and as I have mentioned in the other episodes that I used to give this talk before coronavirus, and that has definitely affected how we are able to donate, because a lot of donation places aren't accepting donations. They're not open. The other thing that's happened is that so many people have spent so much time donating that the Goodwill lines and everything are super packed, and a lot of times these donation places get to the point that they can't accept donations because they don't have the space for it. And the other thing I like to tell people when you're donating belongings is, of course, it's important to think about the end user and the charities that are important to you, but also if you're donating something to keep it out of the landfill, but you wouldn't want it, don't donate it. I mean, if it's not decent or if it's ripped, don't donate it, because then it's just taking up space, and think of the dignity of the receiver. I want to talk a little bit about estate sales, and I think that there are some misconceptions about estate sales, and I think most people know what they are, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what an estate sale is. So an estate sale is typically done when the home is sold, and the estate sale company can basically turn everything that's left over into a sale. And they will go through the home and they will inventory everything, clean it up, and then display it so that they can then open their doors and people can come in and shop in the home. And there can be some pretty good finds, but I will tell you that it's getting very hard to do estate sales. It's especially hard now with coronavirus, because we are trying to limit, people and too many people being in one space, but I do know that they are starting to happen again. And in order to do an estate sale, you have to find a company who's willing to do an estate sale and open to do an estate sale. And what's happened is that so many people want to do estate sales that the estate sale companies have become very selective about which estate sales they will do, because how they typically make their money is by charging the client 40 to 60% of the value of what they collect. So if they feel like what they're going to make in a week's worth of work isn't going to be worth it, they're not going to do the estate sale. There are other reasons that you won't be able to do an estate sale. Sometimes timing is a factor. You need to be out of your home quickly and you can't find a company that can come in and do it. That's another reason. Another reason that you can't do an estate sale, if you're in a gated community that has restrictions Or if you're in a gated community and you can't get enough traffic, a lot of times an estate sale company will rely on the traffic of people who pass by. So if they don't feel like they're going to have enough traffic or they won't have access into your home, that would be a reason. And then another reason is if you're in a condominium and you are expecting to do estate sales and people have to ride an elevator or they don't have easy access into the space, that also makes doing an estate sale difficult. So I'm going to give you some solutions to when you can't do an estate sale. Or also, again, a lot of times it may be that you are doing this just to downsize, and so you don't even need to do the estate sale. I just like to cover it because I don't think people understand. I think everybody knows what a garage sale is, and I think it's just important that you notice how much time the garage sale is going to take and what is your time worth. And some people really enjoy it. And if that's you, then have a garage sale, because it's definitely a great way to get rid of things. And it used to be that we would have garage sales and then we would call charities to come and pick up what was remaining. And again, go back to, whatever you're going to put out there. Is it something that, is worthy of donating or selling? A liquidation, again, this is going to be something when you are actually moving out of your home, not when you are just organizing and wanting to get rid of a little stuff. But a liquidator is basically also called a buyout company. And a liquidator will come in and they will assess what you have left in the home, and they'll figure out what they can earn from selling what you've got left versus what's it going to cost them to clear out the home and then take to the dump whatever can't be sold. So typically our clients will make money on a liquidation. It's usually not much money. I tell people expect pennies on the dollar, but it is an opportunity to clear your home and make some money. And we do have some liquidators. You can look up estate liquidation in your area to find a liquidator. And a lot of times I used to, in the beginning, call in multiple liquidators for my clients. And then we just have a really good relationship with one who was consistently giving our clients the most money. So, but you can sometimes have multiple people come in and give you bids if you're comfortable with that. Another great way to get rid of things is free cycle. In the first episode, I shared a little bit about me, and one of the things that I did when I started Silver Linings Transitions was to do a wheelchair and walker decorating event. And what we did was we collected decorative things so that we could go in and decorate people's wheelchairs and walkers. And we had a big event celebrating spring and celebrating aging. And I actually, the picture that I shared in the first episode was a walker that I had put a little sign on that said, "Follow me to the party," because my feeling when I'm, God willing, I get to be very old one day and live in a senior community, is I want to be the one that is making the parties happen. And so I felt like, if you have the privilege of aging, then, we should celebrate that privilege. And so anyway, we were getting ready. The business was brand new. We hadn't worked with a senior client, a single client. We hadn't worked with a senior client either. And Lisa Gerardo, who works on my team, she's fabulous, and she knows all. She's actually the manager of the company, and she's been with me from the very beginning. And she was really familiar with Free Cycle, where what you do is you can either post something that you're looking for. And in this case, we were looking for ribbons and decorative items. And she found like a bin full of ribbons that we were able to get to actually for free, that we were able to use to decorate people's wheelchairs and walkers. You can also donate your belongings that way. Since then, there are things called Buy Nothing, which is a group on Facebook. Usually it's regional, and you can post when you're looking for something or when you want to give something away, and that's called Buy Nothing. And then another option is something called the Craigslist Curb Alert, which I will show you a slide of. For those of you who are listening and can't see it, you go into Craigslist, you put in your region, and you type in Curb Alert. And you can either post something for Curb Alert or you can find something for Curb Alert. And in the picture that I'm showing, there is, an old skim board, a recliner, an elliptical. This picture that I took was actually, I was walking in my neighborhood one day, and it was a couch, and it had the sign free on it. I have done Curb Alert myself, where I post it, and then I put a sign on the curb that says free, and by the end of the day, usually that item is gone. So that is another great way to get rid of things. There's another a great way, and it's actually pretty busy right now, is using those online apps. And there are different apps, and I'm going to share it with you at the end of the talk. And if you will email me, Jamie@SilverLiningsTransitions, I'll put it in the show notes. I will send this to you. This is the black and white version, and you'll see it at the end of this, but it has different charities that used to do pickups. And then what online apps are best for what. I didn't mention, and I meant to, something that's really important for people when they're holding on to things for value, is how you can check value is by going onto eBay. So I have this eBay story that I like to share. So, one of the things that I shared in the talk in the beginning was that a lot of times people will hold on to things because of the value or the perceived value. And they think, well, I spent, this much money on it. I can't part with it because I won't get that much money. Well, that's the reality of the time that we're living in, unless it's a really unique thing like a first edition book or something of value. But how you can actually assess the value is by going onto eBay and looking up sold items. So here's my eBay story. I have a Guess jean jacket. So back in 1985, I was 15 years old, and I wanted, Guess was the big label, and I wanted this $85 Guess jean jacket. And I asked my parents, will you buy me the Guess jean jacket? And they said they wouldn't buy me the jacket, but they would pay for half of it if I could raise the other half. So 15 years old, I'm making $1 an hour babysitting, but I wanted the jacket. So this is the jacket. And I actually spent a lot of money, see the little Guess, and held onto the jacket all these years, partly, I think, because this was an expensive purchase for me to make, and it also fits. And my daughter wanted to take the jacket with her to sleepaway camp, and I was like, "You can't take my jacket to camp. It's valuable." So then I'm going to do the same thing I tell my clients to do. So I go on eBay and I look up Guess jean jackets, and my $85 Guess jean jacket, which, $85 or $19.85, the inflation should have been a couple $100. It was worth $35. So needless to say, she took it to camp. She brought it back. She's my responsible child. And if you have any question about value, go on to eBay and check out sold items. Okay, so we talked about there are different online apps you can use for selling things. And I will also tell you that personally, I have found Facebook Marketplace to be the one that I feel the most comfortable with. And do remember that when you are selling your belongings, you do have strangers that are coming into your home. The last thing I want to talk about, and I'm really excited about it because it's actually, so what has happened with my business as a senior move manager, I would say the majority of our business was, I would say easily 80% of it was helping people move into senior communities. And what's happened with the pandemic is a lot of people, and it's typically been people who've moved into independent living. And the difference in senior community living, I think it's important just to share this with people, is independent living, senior living is not the same thing, first of all, as nursing homes. So nursing home is actually called a skilled nursing, and it's where somebody goes to recuperate after they have had surgery or some condition and they need a lot more help. And so when we call a nursing home, it's not the nursing home that our great-grandparents and our grandparents lived in, which were convalescent homes. That is truly where somebody goes to recover, which is also why the COVID cases have been so high, because it's a transient population, which is very different than senior living. So Silver Linings Transitions, the majority of the work that we do has been helping people go from their family homes where they've lived independently into independent living. And this is people who recognize, I don't want to maintain the house I'm still living in. It's probably, I've outgrown it. It's getting too hard. There's a lot of unknown costs in owning a home. I'm going to go into a senior community where I can live independently if I want to. Maybe they're driving, maybe they're not driving, maybe they're cooking, maybe they're not cooking. They have the ability to do a lot of that. But now they have access to any of the I'm blanking on the word, any of the driving or cooking that they need. I'm just going to let it go, because again, perfect is the enemy of done. But anyway, so because we are not doing moves into independent living senior communities, which is 80% of our business, we have had to sort of pivot. And a couple of things that have started as a result of coronavirus and the forced shelter in place, and pretty much the standstill of work, is this podcast is one of the things that I decided I wanted to do. Another pivot is that we are going to be photo organizing, and we are going to be basically able to go into someone's home, go through their digital photos and their photo albums and all of the photos that they have in boxes, and be able to digitize them. And what I'm most excited about is that we are buying top of the line equipment that will allow us to restore and preserve photos. So that's going to be something that we offer. But if you are someone that you just want to get the project done and you got boxes of photos, then I'm going to help you do that. And so if you are listening to the podcast, you'll see two boxes. You would see two boxes of photos. One is a box just of a bunch of photos, and that's very typical of what we do, is just have all of these boxes of unorganized photos. And then the bottom one is they're organized. So a couple things you need to know about photos is that they have 125 years of life on them. So if you have old family photos, you probably will notice a disintegration on them. So it is really important to back them up digitally. And the other thing is they take up space. So one of the things that you can do now is actually use your iPhone or your smartphone and an app like Google's Photo Scan to photograph your pictures, and you can actually take pretty decent photos, especially if you're not planning on framing them, that you just want to have them online. You can take your own backup photos. And another thing that is important when you are organizing photos is that if you tell yourself it has to be done chronologically, you may get stuck, because that can be a pretty overwhelming task. So what we recommend is that you rank your photos by A, B, and C, A being the ones that you know you want to keep, and you want they're really good quality, or the content is really good. It's not just scenery, but they're photos that you would frame. So you do them A, B, and C by priority, and then you also group them by theme rather than chronologically. It's a lot easier to look at a photo and say, oh, this was Christmas, than it is this is Christmas 1945. That is going to slow you down. So in addition to photo organizing, I do want to share that Silver Linings Transitions is also developing an age in place component, where it turns out that boomers especially really want to stay in their homes. 85% of people want to remain in their homes, but 90% of people who want to remain in their homes have done nothing to prepare their homes to remain there. So we are going to be doing an aging in place division for Silver Linings Transitions, and that is going to be where we go into someone's home and we evaluate, what are their needs going to maybe be based on family, conditions, or any health conditions they have now. For instance, diabetes has its share of conditions and restrictions that will happen, but just the aging process in general. So, we'll look at how they're living. Is the bedroom upstairs? Are there stairs? Do they need, can they remain in their home, or do they need to move into a single story home that's easier to maintain? So then we would refer them to Brian, who is the realtor that we partner with. He is the senior services director at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. And as I mentioned in a previous podcast, if he sells the home, then he provides Silver Linings Transitions a good part of that for free. So it could be that you can remain in your home, but we're going to evaluate, whether you remain in your home or you move into another home that's easier to maintain on a single story. There are still other challenges and things that we need to address. Medication management. We want to make sure that you're set up for that. Is your home technologically fit for what you're going to need as you age, depending on whether you're living alone? There are sensors that can tell, when you open the refrigerator, so they can monitor your patterns, and family members can be involved. And so we're going to be looking at all of the things that you will need to remain in your home. And whether we are in your city or not, if you are planning to remain in your home, it's really important that you start looking at the components of what you need to do realistically to stay there safely. I'm coming to the end of the 4-part series of Do You Own Your Stuff, or Does Your Stuff Own You? This is, I'm showing your guide to downsizing, and I'm happy to send this to anybody who reaches out. You can contact Silver Linings Transitions at 760-522-1624. That's 760-522-1624. You can find us online. And if you're listening to this by podcast or by Zoom, then I'm pretty sure you have access to the internet. We do a free 1-hour consultation, which we are happy to do for you, whether you're organizing or moving or wanting to just remain in your home. And I also share some local resources for people in San Diego for ways that they can dispose of paint, use mattresses, batteries, and medications. So thank you so much. If you listen to all 4 of the Silver Linings Transitions podcast, Do You Own Your Stuff 4-part series on downsizing. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was definitely a unique way for me to do it. I'm used to an audience, but I wanted to get the content out there. So thank you so much. And don't forget my words of advice that perfect is the enemy of done.